The vehicle carrying the tour group, lost on a rainy night, finally came to a halt in a village not marked on any map. The villagers were taciturn, their faces all seemingly cast from the same mold, and on the wall of every house hung a picture of a smiling girl in a red dress. The next morning, a tourist vanished, then a second, and a third disappeared into thin air. A girl named Oh Dong awoke by the river, facing Tuda, a man who claimed to have died 3 years prior. Beside them was Feng Yalin, a woman who insisted she was there to find her younger brother, but all the photos on her phone had disappeared, leaving only an image of a stone gate carved with the words, Wei Village. As night descended, the empty houses began to stir, and voices calling their names echoed from beneath the earth. Trust no one here is human anymore. Feng Yalin was stunned speechless. She frowned, looking at Oh Dong. I came here to find my younger brother. He came here alone and now he's nowhere to be found. Oh Dong decided to help the woman regain her memory. You came here to find your younger brother. Feng Yalin's brows didn't relax at all. She was about to ask more, but then Tuda returned with a pile of dry firewood, forcing her into silence. Tuda lit the fire and asked Oh Dong why she fell into the river. Oh Dong recounted seeing a large monster, which Tuda also confirmed. Tuda was extremely tense upon hearing this. He urgently demanded Oh Dong remove her clothes. Why do I have to take off my clothes? Oh Dong glanced at Feng Yalin. Even if her clothes were wet, she couldn't undress in front of both of them. Don't refuse, take them off quickly. Be careful, those bugs might crawl inside you. Tuda said, reaching out to tear Oh Dong's shirt. Oh Dong's poor shirt was ruthlessly torn in half. Then he started tearing her pants. Oh Dong tried to resist, but Tuda grabbed her ankle. There's one. Bear with it for a moment, I'll deal with it for you, he said, pressing his hand on Oh Dong's ankle to prevent the soul-sucking bug, already halfway in, from advancing further into her body. At this moment, Oh Dong also saw a disgusting bug on her ankle, about to burrow into her body. She shrieked in alarm, almost crying. Tuda heated a dagger with fire, then sliced Oh Dong's ankle. The wriggling bug crawled out with the flowing blood. Tuda flicked the tip of the knife in his hand, and the soul-sucking bug was thrown into the fire. A soft sound echoed, and the bug turned into a wisp of smoke. Bear the pain for a moment, I'll help you treat the wound, Tuda said, pulling a dagger from his pants leg and plunging it into Oh Dong's calf. This time, it was truly excruciating. Oh Dong wanted to pull her leg back, but Tuda held her firmly. Just endure it a little longer, only for a moment. He looked at her with anguish, but his hand did not stop. He forcefully poked the knife in, and Oh Dong's entire calf was split open. Just as Oh Dong was about to curse, she suddenly discovered something like bug eggs leaping out from her wound. The white, rice grain-like bug eggs flowed out with her blood. What is this? Oh Dong was dumbfounded by the sight, forgetting the pain in her leg. Tuda's forehead was beaded with sweat, but he carefully helped Oh Dong clean all the eggs from her leg. Then he heated the dagger over the fire again, using the high temperature to sterilize Oh Dong's wound. This time, Oh Dong fainted from the pain. Tuda held Oh Dong close, calling her name anxiously, but Oh Dong didn't respond. She's been infected by the soul-sucking bugs, Feng Yalin said from beside them. Tuda ignored her, bending down to seal Oh Dong's lips again, then gently touched his lips to hers, transferring his spiritual energy to her. Don't give her any more. Feng Yalin pushed Tuda away. She's already dead. Even if you save her from the soul-sucking bugs, she won't live for more than a few hours. When it's time to collect her soul, she'll be taken away anyway. Tuda didn't listen. He bent down and transferred his spiritual energy to Oh Dong again. Oh Dong's eyelids fluttered. She weakly regained consciousness. Lord of the Night, your devotion is truly deep and profound. A man's voice suddenly rang out. Tuda quickly laid Oh Dong on the ground and cautiously drew out his staff. In the firelight, a man in black slowly entered Tuda's sight. He wore a clown mask and a bright red cloak. Shadow Killer? Tuda curled his lip, seemingly unsurprised by his appearance. To transfer spiritual energy to a dead person who is about to be taken by the black and white impermanence in this chaotic land seems like a foolish thing to do. Playing tricks in this chaotic land, you demon race are also doing something extremely foolish, Tuda retorted, not to be outdone. We're just passing through. Shadow Killer glanced at Feng Yalin. Of course, when we see an envoy from the divine realm bringing a dead person for the cultivation of the living to Wei Village, we can't help but be curious and come to observe. This probably doesn't violate the laws of gods and demons, does it? Violates or not, you and I both know in our hearts. Before I get angry, quickly take your sister and leave this place. Oh Dong gradually regained consciousness, but her whole body was still weak, only vaguely hearing people talking. Do you think I'll agree? She is my client. I have a duty to protect her safety, so it is you who must leave this place. What if I don't? You have no right to say no. A cold light flashed, and Odong only saw two figures soaring before her. She tried to see clearly but couldn't do anything. She felt too weak. The sound of fighting didn't last long before the black figure's voice rang out again. Lord of the Night, where exactly do you want to take her? Where am I taking her? Don't you know already? Tuda laughed coldly. Ever since she entered here, you've been doing shady things the whole way. Just now, when we entered the cave, you let Feng Yelin appear and cause trouble. Wasn't it to make her break the pact with me so you could get her pure soul? But unfortunately, your plan failed. I won't let you succeed. Ha ha, the black figure laughed loudly. Yes, you're right, but you're also very powerful, able to seal my formation first. Knowing my power, why don't you get lost? Tuda's tone was full of contempt. Don't let me see your unsightly demon race again. Really? But if I take your protective core elixir, would you still dare to speak like that? You must have the ability to take it. Then another fight ensued. Odong didn't know when the fight ended. She only knew her body grew warmer and warmer, then burning hot. It's so hot, she tossed and turned, sitting up. The campfire still burned, but the surroundings were strangely silent. Odong looked around and found Tuda sleeping in a sleeping bag. What's going on? She wondered. Wasn't he just fighting that shadow figure? Why is he sleeping in a sleeping bag? Is he dead? Odong moved to his side, carefully reaching out to check his breath, but as soon as her hand extended, he grabbed it. What are you doing? He looked at her suspiciously. I thought you were dead. What? Tuda frowned and sat up. Did you sleep until your brain turned to mush? Odong didn't know if she'd slept until her brain turned to mush, but she felt immensely relieved to know Tuda was alive. She pulled back the blanket to examine her wound, but seeing it left her stunned. Where was the wound on her leg? She had clearly seen Tuda use a dagger to cut open her calf, and those white, rice grain-like bug eggs had flowed out with her blood, but now there wasn't a single scar on her calf. Had Tuda used magic to heal her leg? Odong quickly asked Tuda, "Did you heal my leg?" "Heal what?" "My leg wound." "Your leg wound." At this, Tuda revealed his familiar expression of disgust. He pulled out a cigarette, lit it, took a puff, and said, "I suspect your brother isn't missing. Rather, you wanted to come here for a test of courage, dragging me along to help you." "I came for a test of courage and dragged him along to help me?" What was going on with Tuda's strange thought process? Had he forgotten what happened after he went into the cave? The monsters and the disgusting bugs? Odong felt utterly confused. She didn't understand why the wound Tuda had cut was gone when she woke up. And Tuda's memory seemed to have vanished too. Was she hallucinating, or was Tuda hallucinating? There was also another thing. The two people who appeared earlier, a woman named Feng Yelin and a man whose face she couldn't clearly see. "Mr. Tuda, where is the woman named Feng Yelin from yesterday? Where did she go?" Odong asked Tuda. Tuda raised an eyebrow, looking at her confused, then reached out to touch her forehead. "You're not hot, so why are you talking nonsense? Feng Yelin from yesterday? It's 11:30 p.m. now. I've only been with you for just over 5 hours. There's no yesterday." Tuda finished speaking, flicked the cigarette butt into the fire, and lay down again. "Stop talking nonsense, go to sleep. Tomorrow we still have to find your brother." Then he actually fell asleep, leaving Odong with a stunned expression. She had no choice but to lie down, staring into the dark cave. Finding her brother was more important than anything else right now. She would deal with other matters later. So Odong crawled out of the blanket. As soon as she took a step, she felt a sharp pain in her ankle. It seemed she had sprained it. Her leg hurt again, but there was no wound. Had Tuda used some strange magic to heal her wound? But the pain hadn't disappeared. She looked at Tuda suspiciously. Tuda looked back at her. "What's wrong? Does your leg hurt again?" he asked her. Odong nodded. "You want me to carry you again? Again? Did I let Mr. Tuda carry me yesterday?" Odong asked, suspicious. "Are you playing the amnesia game with me?" Tuda was very annoyed. He pulled a contract from his backpack, pointed to the writing on it, and showed it to Odong. "You wrote it yourself, surely you haven't forgot." Odong took it and confirmed it was indeed her handwriting. It stated 500 per carry. She had indeed let Tuda carry her yesterday, but she remembered absolutely nothing. But what she remembered was different from what Tuda said. What the hell was going on? Odong also stared at her leg and asked Tuda, "Why did I sprain my leg?" "You sprained your leg when you jumped down the stone steps. You don't exercise much normally, so your body is very weak. You only jumped a little over a meter and you sprained your leg. Then you carried me here to rest?" Odong pointed to the campfire. That's right. The truth proves that you, Odong, are very brave. After lying down, you slept like a log. I fell asleep. Did that mean all the white-faced monsters and bugs she encountered were just a dream? Damn it, that dream was too real. Odong could now imagine her feelings at that time when she encountered those bugs. Mr. Tuda, Odong decided to tell Tuda about her strange dreams. I actually saw you transform. Your hair grew long and you had a large saber. No, wait, there was also a gun. On that gun, a spider lily was carved and its pistol could even move. Then you brought a very beautiful woman. She said she was your fiancé. Seeing Tuda didn't believe her, Odong insisted a third time. It's true, I really saw it. There also seemed to be a shadow figure wearing a clown mask. He even said I was already dead. Indeed, you are dead. Huh, Odong looked at Tuda anxiously. Am I really dead? Tuda glanced at Odong, then slowly uttered a sentence. If not, why are you talking such nonsense? WTF, does he think I'm joking? I'm serious. Odong was a little angry. Why didn't he believe her? What you say might be true, but what you experienced might not necessarily be true. I told you, the descendants of the phoenix migrated from this place. And why were they here 100,000 years ago, guarding the phoenix? Do you know? Odong shook her head. She didn't know any of this. Because this is the phoenix's tomb. The people of Wei Village are the guardians of the phoenix's tomb. Do you understand now? You mean the place we're currently passing through is a tomb? That's right, Odong. Last night you asked me to sleep with you for one night in the ancient tomb. As someone who knows a little about Feng Shui, I don't think you'd consider what you experienced to be real, even if it happened, because this place is inherently very ominous. But is it really that ominous? Odong scratched her head, looking around. She began to doubt herself. All right, let's get out of here quickly. Tuda urged. Odong didn't dare to stay long. She limped along behind Tuda, moving forward. She just didn't know that ahead of the campfire, all the towering rocks had been smashed and scattered, and the ground and rock walls were covered with messy knife marks, like a battlefield. After a while, Odong tried to make conversation with Tuda. After realizing this was a tomb, Odong walked behind Tuda, feeling a little uneasy. Mr. Tuda, how much further is this road? Unclear. Didn't you say you knew everything? When did I say that? Odong tilted her head, thinking. It seemed he had never said that. Oh well, let's ask another question then. Mr. Tuda, you previously told me you were a cultivator, so what exactly do you cultivate? Character, virtue, or good deeds? Tuda stopped walking. He turned and looked at the limping Odong, asking in return, when did I tell you I was a cultivator? Odong scratched her head, trying to recall when Tuda had told her he was a cultivator. After some thought, she finally remembered it was after they went into the cave and encountered the monsters. In other words, the idea of Tuda being a cultivator was Odong's hallucination. Sorry, Mr. Tuda, I was hallucinating just now, so I imagined you were a cultivator, Odong explained to Tuda. But I really want to know, if this place is the phoenix's tomb, what is this path we're on? Is it the entrance to the tomb or a path inside the tomb? I only know a little about yin and yang and the 8 trigrams. I'm not a tomb raider. How should I know where this is? But don't you find anything strange? Odong still wouldn't give up. But I've been hallucinating. Odong fell silent there. No, if she was really hallucinating, how did the hallucination appear? Why was she the only one hallucinating? And Tuda, who went into the cave with her, was fine? Is it because you are a pure yin female? If that were true, she couldn't guarantee that what she was experiencing right now wasn't a hallucination. Maybe this cave didn't exist at all. Maybe Tuda in front of her didn't exist either. If that were true, it would be terrifying. Odong didn't know if she was still stepping into an illusion or reality. She was a bit confused, a little scared. Odong slowly squatted down, buried her head in her knees, and cried out. She was truly frightened because she had no ability to distinguish all of this. Seeing her like that, Tuda's usual disgusted expression was gradually replaced by sorrow. He bent down to comfort her. Don't be afraid, aren't I here? But now I don't know if Mr. Tuda, you are real or fake. Real or fake doesn't matter. What matters is the goal of this trip. Tuda squatted down and patiently explained. Odong, you came here to find your younger brother because to you, he is the most important person in this world. No matter how complicated and chaotic the current situation may be, you must grit your teeth and persevere. Odong stopped crying. She reconsidered what Tuda had just said. Yes, even if Tuda in front of her wasn't real, he had never done anything to harm her from beginning to end. From the moment they entered Wei Village until now, he had tried his best to protect her. Even if it was in her hallucination, he was always fiercely loyal. Where do we go next? Odong wiped the tears from her face and asked Tuda. Tuda narrowed his eyes, looking at the still dark path ahead. Currently, we can only go straight along this path. As for how long it will take to get out of here, I don't know, but I can guarantee that as long as we keep going, we will definitely find a way out. After saying that, he patted himself. I'm a businessman. Although I love money, I also love my life, so I won't lose my life here. Odong burst out laughing when she heard him say that. Mr. Tuda was right. He wasn't just an ordinary money lover. People who love money also love their lives. Following him, they would surely escape this cave. Moreover, she still had to find her younger brother. Let's go. Odong stood up, looking ahead, filled with confidence once more. The path ahead was difficult. First, because Odong's leg was injured, and second, because the path deeper into the cave became increasingly narrow, eventually becoming an impassable rock tunnel. With newfound confidence, Odong gritted her teeth and persevered. 2 hours later, she finally saw a glimmer of light. I see the way out. She turned back to tell Tuda, who was behind her, then happily rushed forward. The light grew closer and closer. Odong felt that the light was like life force, filling her whole body with vitality. Finally, she crawled out of the cave. Tuda also emerged from the cave, but everything before Odong's eyes made her unable to feel joy despite the light. She found herself in a desolate grassy field, the surroundings still silent like another Wei Village. Mr. Tuda. Odong turned to look at Tuda. She wanted to ask her only companion what had happened. It's definitely another place, Tuda said. Do you remember the drawings we saw in the ancestral hall? Odong nodded. According to Mr. Tuda, her hallucinations began when she stepped down the stone stairs. So what happened in the cave was probably real. The drawings on the ground of the ancestral hall were also real. I remember. The drawings said that the people of Wei Village are descendants of the phoenix. They don't marry or associate with outsiders. Later, to avoid disturbance from others, the entire village left through this cave. Odong replied, That's right, Tuda pointed forward. I think those villagers came out from here, then found another place to establish themselves again. The place we want to go now is another Wei Village. You mean? Odong immediately understood Tuda's meaning. If her younger brother went to Wei Village for a test of courage, then his route map might very well be from one vanished Wei Village to another existing Wei Village. This is the true Wei Village for the test of courage. But I have a doubt, Odong said seriously to Tuda. If my brother's goal was to go to the Wei Village rebuilt by the villagers later, then why couldn't I find any information about this later Wei Village? There are 2 possibilities, Tuda calmly replied. 1, the new village rebuilt by the Wei villagers isn't called Wei Village. The second possibility is that the village they rebuilt isn't in the human world. Odong could understand the first possibility, but the second possibility. Not rebuilt in the human world? What does that mean? We're not in the human world, are we in the underworld? Tuda seemed to sense Odong's confusion. He patiently said, Have you seen the movie Parallel Worlds? Odong shook her head. After you find your brother and go home, I suggest you watch that movie. Then you'll know that the space we are in also has another parallel space. You can't see it, it doesn't know you, but you can't deny its existence. So right now, we might have already gone to another space. Odong pointed into the distance, sticking out her tongue playfully. So, didn't I profit this time? Odong's remark successfully made Tuda laugh. This was the first time Odong had seen Tuda laugh. She didn't know why, but she felt that Mr. Tuda's smile gave her a strong sense of familiarity. It was as if he had stood before her like this and smiled at her before. I've been having hallucinations recently. Odong looked away and gently patted her head, trying to shake off that unsettling feeling. Tuda, standing beside her, quietly turned away, facing the desolate wasteland, closing his eyes in pain. The 2 continued for more than 2 hours. Tuda suggested they rest for a bit. He took water and biscuits from his backpack and gave them to Odong, then squatted down to check her sprained ankle. It seems to be a sprain. Let me rub it for you, Tuda said, taking a cotton ball soaked in alcohol from his backpack to sterilize it, then lit it with a lighter. He placed the burning cotton ball on the top of Odong's foot and began to rub it while it was still hot. Odong felt a blast of hot air on the top of her foot, followed by a continuous cold sensation spreading from the sole of her foot to her entire leg. When she was little, Odong had undergone fire therapy, but that time, besides the heat, it was very painful. She hadn't expected Mr. Tuda's technique to be so good, even able to feel cold. After Tuda finished treating her, Odong stood up and took a few steps. She felt much better. I didn't know you could also give massages. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have tired myself out so much in the cave. Tuda didn't reply. He began to pack his backpack, preparing to set off. But Odong still saw beads of sweat on his forehead. She wanted to ask, but ultimately couldn't. The two continued their journey. Because they didn't know which direction Ning went, their journey was very slow. With every step, Odong wanted to stop and determine if the flattened grass was trampled by Ning. They kept walking and walking through the forest. Eventually, they saw a thatched cottage. When Odong saw the thatched cottage, she was overjoyed. She limped towards it. Inside the thatched cottage was an elderly couple who looked at Odong and Tuda with some confusion. "Where are you people from?" the old man asked Odong. "We're from S City looking for someone." Odong took out a photo of her younger brother and asked the couple. The old couple held the photo, admired it for a while, then pointed to a forest. "A few days ago, a young man like this came to us asking for directions to Wei Village. We directed him to the town to ask." "To the town?" Odong was startled and quickly asked the old woman, "Did you say Yuxiang Town?" "That's right, Yuxiang Town." Odong's face suddenly turned pale. Her first stop when coming to Wei Village was Yuxiang Town. If behind this forest was Yuxiang Town, then hadn't she just gone in a circle? "Let's go to the town and check." Tuda, full of suspicion, pulled Odong away, leading her towards the forest. Odong's mood was still heavy. She said to Tuda, "Mr. Tuda, didn't you hear what the old couple said? Crossing this forest leads to Yuxiang Town. When I came to Wei Village, I found a car in Yuxiang Town. If Ning asked the old couple a few days ago, he should have been in town long ago. Why hasn't he returned to S City? This is indeed a problem. From Wei Village to the cave entrance, it only takes 3 hours of continuous walking to get out. Then from the exit to this forest, at a normal pace, it's less than 2 hours. Ning's test of courage mission should have been completed in 1 day, but 3 days have passed without any news from him. Add these 2 days, and it's already 5 days. What on earth is going on? Everything will be discussed when we get to town, Tuda said, then looked at the time. Hurry up, we don't have much time left. Odong didn't know why Tuda said they didn't have much time. Now she urgently needed to get to town to clarify everything, so she didn't ask but followed Tuda, speeding up her pace towards the forest. Not long after entering the small forest, Odong saw an ancient-style city wall towering before them. Beneath the city wall, there was no city gate, only a passage like a tunnel. On both sides of the passage were 2 strangely shaped stone beasts. The 2 beasts resembled tigers, but were more majestic than tigers. Odong recognized them as Bixi from ancient legends. "Why Bixi?" Odong muttered to herself. If Yuxiang Town was an ancient town, guarding beneath its city wall should be lions or similar creatures. Why Bixi? Ancient mythical beasts like Bixi should guard yamen offices and prisons. It's truly strange. Odong's strangeness didn't last long under Tuda's urging voice. She quickly followed his steps into the tunnel, not even noticing the 2 almost faded characters, Nanshan, on the city wall. The tunnel wasn't long. In less than a minute, they had passed through. Outside the city wall was a riverbank, overgrown with weeds. Odong followed Tuda's steps, walking on the blue flagstone path along the riverbank to a stone-arched bridge. The stone-arched bridge was also very ancient, with carved beast statues on each pier. As Odong passed by, she briefly noticed 12 piers on both sides of the bridge. The carved beast statues were the 12 zodiac animals from legends. Each zodiac animal was vividly carved, as if alive. But this place was completely different from the Yuxiang Town she had visited. Although she hadn't stayed long in Yuxiang Town, a small town like Yuxiang was similar to most small towns in the country. There was a main road running east to west, with 1 or 2 supermarkets, snack shops, a few restaurants on either side, then the town hospital building, and the town government, along with the town's middle and elementary schools, almost a panoramic view of the town. But this Yuxiang Town was completely different. The entire market was very similar to the along the river during the Qingming festival, painting from Odong's elementary school language arts textbook. She stood at the head of the bridge, looking at the bustling market not far away, and immediately discarded the phrase, very similar. No, it wasn't very similar, it was identical. They hadn't returned to the original Yuxiang Town, but instead, as Mr. Tuda might have said, to Yuxiang Town in a parallel world. So the test of courage was a transmigration. "Mr. Tuda." Odong walked over and grabbed Tuda's backpack strap. Tuda turned back to look at her. Compared to her surprise, he seemed calmer. Let's go to town and ask if anyone has seen your younger brother, he said to Odong. All the questions Odong wanted to ask were suppressed by his calmness. She passively followed Tuda forward, but the street scene astonished her. Because the people on the street not only wore clothes from the old society, but there were also people in Hanfu and Tangfu, even Cheongsams from the Republic of China era. In front of a shop, she even saw a man dressed in Qing dynasty attire chatting with someone else. Is this a film and television studio? Odong blinked, looking at the people on the street. The passers-by also stared at them. But it was also strange that when they saw Tuda, they all stopped and bowed to him. They seemed to respect him greatly. Their attitude towards her, however, was not respect but fear, as if they had seen a ghost. The attitude of the townspeople towards Odong left her momentarily at a loss. She tried showing them a photo of her younger brother, Ning, but they all scrambled to avoid her. Don't come over here, you have corpse poison on you. A girl dressed like a college student from the old society pushed Odong away, as frightened as if she had a virus. Everyone on the street began to avoid Odong. In an instant, the street was deserted. Only Odong, with a bewildered expression, and Tuda, with a heavy heart, remained. Why are they running away when they see me? Odong asked Tuda. They even said I have corpse poison on me. She pulled open her collar and sniffed her body. Even though she had been running all day, her body couldn't possibly smell so bad as to make people run away like that. Odong also didn't understand what corpse poison was. Tuda didn't answer her but pointed to a house that looked like an inn. First, let's find an inn to stay in. We can ask the people at the inn about finding your brother later. This is also a solution. Odong nodded in agreement. She followed Tuda into the inn. The light inside the door was very dim. It didn't seem to be doing business. Odong followed Tuda, anxiously looking at the furnishings in the inn. At the entrance were 2 stone statues of beasts, but they were placed inside the door, not outside. Entering the lobby, straight ahead was the reception counter. Behind the counter were some very strangely shaped objects. There was a puppet with chains, smiling, an old woman with thick eyebrows, and an old man holding a large saber. In front of these 3 strange objects was an incense burner, with 3 incense sticks burning, smoke wafting and covering them all. Those 3 strange objects instilled a sense of awe in people. Odong suddenly felt short of breath. She leaned against Tuda, starting to gasp. Seeing her like that, Tuda frowned and began to tap on the counter. Anyone here? What's wrong? An old woman's slightly trembling voice came from the small room behind the counter. Then a bead curtain was pulled aside from inside, and a thin old woman emerged. This old woman wasn't just thin, she was skin and bones. Her head looked very large, but her mental state was very good. A pair of clear eyes darted back and forth in their sockets, as if able to see through everything in the world. We're here to register. Tuda took out his ID and placed it on the counter. The old woman glanced at Odong and asked, Are you also here to register? Yes. Odong quickly took her ID from her backpack and handed it to the old woman. The old woman took their IDs, looked at them, and asked with dry lips, What kind of business? Prolonging life, Tuda replied. Odong didn't understand. She looked at Tuda suspiciously, then at the old woman. Shouldn't she be asking about renting rooms and things like that when we come here to stay? Why is she asking about what kind of business? Was Tuda's answer. Prolonging life, some kind of slogan? Although she didn't understand, Odong still reminded the old woman, Give us 2 rooms. She held up 2 fingers towards the old woman. The old woman looked at Odong's reaction, her dry lips twitched again, then she threw both their IDs onto the counter and said coldly, Sorry, this establishment cannot register for the 2 of you. Why? Odong leaned on the counter and asked. The old woman ignored her and looked at Tuda. Lord of the Night, have you still not told her the truth that she is dead? Tuda didn't answer. He lowered his head, looking at his toes. Odong looked at Tuda, then back at the old woman, narrowing her eyes in confusion. Who are you saying is dead? No one answered her. Tuda picked up the IDs from the counter and said to the old woman, Give me some time, I'll resolve this immediately. With that, he pulled Odong away. Odong became even more confused. As she followed Tuda out, she asked, Mr. Tuda, who are you saying is dead? Tuda didn't answer. He dragged her out of the inn, then looked up at the sky. Odong also looked up at the sky with him. The clear, beautiful sunny sky instantly turned gloomy. Odong slowly shifted her gaze from the changing sky to Tuda beside her. With one glance, she recoiled. Mr. Tuda. He had transformed into the strange man with long hair, a silver hair tie, and purple robes that she had seen in the cave. Oh my God, am I hallucinating again? Or am I still living in a hallucination? Dong was about to collapse. Now she couldn't distinguish between reality and illusion. She didn't even know if she was truly herself. Mr. Tuda, who exactly are you? I am Tuda. You know, I'm not asking that. Dong was on the verge of losing her temper. In the cave, I told you I saw you transform like this, but you kept telling me it was my hallucination. So what now? Is this also my hallucination? I'm sorry, in the cave, I intentionally concealed the truth. What you saw was not a hallucination. Tuda looked up at the sky again, somewhat melancholic. But if I admitted everything, I would have to explain many things to you, such as why you came to Wei Village to find your younger brother, such as why I wanted to bring you to this place. I don't have time to explain to you. You don't have time to explain to me? Dong stepped back 2 paces, her mind starting to spin. Why would Tuda need to explain to her? Even if he was a strange person with magic, she could accept that. What she saw must be true. He didn't have time to explain, definitely because the situation was not what she thought. There must be something strange going on. Dong seriously recalled everything she had encountered in the past 2 days. She suspected that her younger brother, Ning, might not have come to Wei Village at all. All of this could be a trick by the man in front of her. Perhaps he had captured Ning, or perhaps, as she had thought, he was the owner of that website. What was his purpose? What was the purpose of capturing Ning and then pretending to help her come here? Dong remembered what Tuda had said to the shadow figure in the cave. He said she had a pure soul. If what she saw and heard was true, then Tuda, the cultivator, certainly didn't want to suck her soul. No. Dong immediately rejected her thought. She began to seriously recall the words she had heard in the cave. Those words clearly indicated that the woman named Feng Yalin and the shadow figure wanted her soul, but Mr. Tuda seemed to always protect her. She thought of Tuda killing those monsters, and the scene where he rescued her from the water, and the scene where he helped her pick the bugs out of her leg. He had no intention of harming her. He seemed to be wholeheartedly protecting her. What did Mr. Tuda just say to the skinny old woman? Prolonging life. Dong thought of the phoenix legend Tuda had told her. Was he going to take her life to prolong someone else's life? Prolong whose life? Who died? Dong stepped forward, questioning Tuda. Who exactly is dead? Tuda's eyes wavered slightly, then he finally said weakly, Ning is dead. What? Dong froze in place. Ning is dead. Your younger brother Ning is dead. Are you joking with me? Dong cried out brokenly to Tuda. I came to you for help finding my brother, not for you to talk nonsense. Ning is dead. How did he die? How do you know? You told me. Dong, emotionally unstable, shook her head. She felt like her head was about to explode. Mr. Tuda, don't joke with me. My brother just went missing. How could he be dead? Furthermore, when did I tell you these things? We've only known each other for less than 2 days. After playing this joke, will you pretend you don't know anything again, making me think I'm mentally ill? Mr. Tuda, right now I'm trying to convince myself that everything I saw in the cave earlier was a hallucination. But you know those things weren't illusions, and you keep diverting my judgment. Now you're telling me my brother is dead, and you say I told you? Do you take me for a fool? Seeing Dong's distressed appearance, Tuda wanted to comfort her. He reached out his hand, but ultimately forced himself to lower it. Finally, he said to her with a serious expression, I don't take you for a fool. The reason I couldn't tell you the truth in the cave was because it was a chaotic land. I erased your memories, making you think you truly existed, because once you realize you are just a soul, you cannot pass through the chaotic land. You erased my memories? Yes. Tuda looked up at the sky again, speaking rapidly. 3 days ago, you and your brother had an accident. Your brother died protecting you. You couldn't accept this truth, so you came to me, begging me to take you to Wei Village to help your brother prolong his life. Tuda said, then waved his hand in the air, and a scene appeared before Dong, herself wearing a ventilator, lying in the intensive care unit. The her of now was not the her she thought she was. The real her was currently in the hospital. She was just a soul, and the chaotic land had many wraiths that fed on souls. Those wraiths also had a terrifying ability. If she knew she was a soul, there would be no way for her to leave, only to wait to be devoured. So he lied. Tuda took out a contract from his backpack. Dong's signature was on it. This is the pact we signed 3 days ago. As a cultivator, I will help you fulfill this wish and accumulate merit for myself. You came here to fulfill your wish, to prolong your brother's life. Dong shook her head, unable to accept this truth. Her brother was dead, and she was in the hospital. So, the scenes that appeared before her eyes when she fell into the water were not hallucinations within hallucinations, but lingering memories from the accident she and her brother had. Make your choice, O Dong. Do you want to prolong your brother's life? If you don't, we won't register and I will take you out of here. But you must think carefully. This is your only chance to save your brother. After today, once the Nanshan gate closes, you will forever lose the opportunity to return. If I agree, can my brother really come back to life? Odong didn't want it to be all in vain. Tuda nodded. Yes. Odong thought for a moment, then suddenly smiled. It's all right. Didn't you say one phoenix feather is worth 100 years? I have a lifespan of 100 years. I'm currently 20, leaving 80 years. My brother and I each get half, that's 40 years. With a lifespan of 40 years, my 17-year-old brother can do many things. He can realize his ideals, pursue the girl he likes, and enjoy the happy outcome of love. But Tuda quickly shattered her illusion. Prolonging life isn't just a temporary existence. Prolonging means taking your life to help him continue living. What you have to give now isn't 40 years, but 80 years. But the accident damaged your vital energy. Your remaining lifespan is only 30 years. That's right, Tuda seemed to have mentioned this to her at the ancestral hall. It seemed he had warned her beforehand, but she had been foolish and didn't realize it. 30 years, then 30 years. If I asked you to bring me here, I agree to trade my life for his. Odong made up her mind. Although knowing this now terrified her, if she had to choose again, she would still willingly give her life for her brother. He was her only family in this world. Seeing her so resolute, Tuda asked again to confirm if she had thought it through. If you give it to him, you will disappear from this world and no one will remember you. I've thought it through. Odong turned around and looked at herself lying in the hospital. Look at me. I'm injured like this, both legs suspended, my face wrapped in bandages. Even if I wake up, I'll just be a crippled person, disfigured. I don't want to live like this. Furthermore, your brother died protecting you. Your life was originally his, now you're just returning what belongs to him. Then let's go register, Tuda said, then waved his hand again. The clouds in the sky immediately scattered and the sunlight shone brightly all around. The two entered the hall once more. The skinny old woman stood in her original position, not looking up, asking them, what business? Prolonging life. Odong slammed her ID onto the counter, her eyes resolute. The old woman ignored her but looked up at Tuda. Tuda placed his ID on the counter and said softly, register us. Have you thought it through? Lord of the Night, taking your 9 lifetimes of cultivation to prolong a life for 30 years, don't you regret it? Granny Long, you're just the registration clerk. You don't need to say so much. All right, consider Granny Long to be nosy, Granny Long said, then pointed a finger at a spot in the air. A drawer above the counter automatically opened, and then a registration form flew out from inside and landed on the counter. Tuda took out a dagger, lightly cut his ring finger on his left hand, and dripped his blood into a small vial on the counter. Then he held Odong's hand and softly asked, Are you afraid? Odong shook her head. I'm willing to give my life. Why would I be afraid to shed 2 drops of blood? Tuda gently opened her finger, dripping her blood into the vial. The 2 drops of blood in the vial slowly approached each other, finally merging. Tuda took a goose feather, dipped a little blood, and wrote his name on the registration form, then held Odong's hand and asked her to write her name. After doing these things, he handed the paper to Granny Long. Granny Long looked it over, placed the paper on the altar, then took a bunch of keys and led the 2 upstairs. She opened 2 rooms, then instructed Tuda and Odong, rest for a while, wait for the Phoenix Lord to summon you. After saying that, she went downstairs. At this moment, Odong no longer had any thoughts. She turned around distractedly, preparing to enter the room. Tuda stopped her. Odong, after you go in, don't wander around. Sit down obediently, understand? Odong nodded. She pushed the door and stepped inside. Before entering, Odong had thought it was just an ordinary room, but unexpectedly, after stepping inside, she found that the furnishings were identical to those in her own home. No, perhaps this was her home. What on earth was going on? She turned to open the door and asked Tuda next door, but found the door wouldn't open. Why did it suddenly lock? She knocked on the door, called out a few times, but no one answered. She stopped knocking, turned back, and looked at her house. Was this some kind of service for those about to die? To bring her back to the home she had lived in since childhood, to see her familiar surroundings, to help her recall her past? Yes, perhaps she should carefully remember the past. In a little while, she would disappear from this world, right here. Her friends, her life, and everything she knew might also disappear. As for where she would go, to heaven or into reincarnation, it was still unclear. Well, that's fine. If I die, I can be reunited with my parents. Dong stood in the middle of the living room, looking at her parents' photo on the picture wall, a sudden longing rising in her heart. She scanned through them one by one, slowly recalling the time she spent with her parents, those happy times. But she immediately realized a problem. Why wasn't there a picture of her younger brother, Ning, on this picture wall? She took down all the photos and searched through them one by one. There really wasn't a single photo of her younger brother. Younger brother. She pressed her head, trying to remember, and found that there was no memory of her younger brother, Ning, left in her mind. Besides knowing he was studying at Pyang High School Vocational College, knowing he came to Wei Village for a test of courage, and knowing what he looked like, she had no other impressions. Had the phoenix taken away her memories? No, she immediately rejected her thought, because in her heart, she knew that from the first day she knew her brother was missing, in her mind, apart from the impression of a younger brother, she didn't have many memories of him. She hadn't recalled it because her attention was entirely focused on finding her brother, not caring about anything else. Had Mr. Tu known she wanted to prolong her brother's life and thus obscured her memories of him? Dong decided to go into the rooms to find traces of her brother's existence. If not, all of this would be truly terrifying. She entered the master bedroom first. This was the room where her parents used to rest. She opened the door and stepped in. Her parents' wedding photo was still hanging in its original position. On the dressing table in the bedroom, there were no narcissus flowers she had prepared for her mother. When she was alive, her mother loved narcissus, so after her mother passed away, she still kept a pot of narcissus in her parents' room. She opened the wardrobe drawers, the clothes inside were unchanged. She turned around and ran to the second bedroom. This was her room. The computer by the window was still on. The keyboard she had angrily thrown lay pitifully face down on the desk. On the bed were several messy clothes she had discarded. This was from when she hurriedly packed her luggage to rush to Wei Village. Everything was still the same as when she left yesterday. She ran out to check around. The kitchen, bathroom, balcony. Everywhere there were no traces of Ning's existence. This was impossible. Even if her brother was a boarding student, there should still be some of his clothes in the house. Furthermore, why would Mr. Tu separate her brother Ning from her memories? He didn't need to do that at all. She was going to die anyway. Dong returned to her room, her mind in a jumble, unable to figure out the purpose of arranging for her to return home. Was it to tell her that a home without Ning was her real life? Or was it to persuade her to give up her decision to prolong Ning's life? I've made up my mind, I won't give up, she shouted loudly in the empty room, then slowly slid to the floor. She felt very tired, utterly exhausted. She wanted it all to end quickly. Suddenly, the ceiling above her began to shake, like an earthquake, then faster and faster. Her computer fell from the desk, then plunged into a bottomless abyss. Next, her wardrobe, her bed, and everything in her room swayed and fell into that bottomless abyss. Finally, she was alone in the room. She wanted to get up and rush out, but as her hand was about to touch the doorknob, someone from outside pushed the door open. Dong, it's Mr. Tuda. He was wearing home clothes, a smiling expression on his face as he looked around the room. You lazy little pig, how much longer do you plan to sleep? He smiled as he walked past Dong, slowly moving to the center of the room. Dong looked at him in astonishment. She was clearly in front of him, so why did he act as if he didn't see her and walk past? She turned around and was immediately stunned by the scene before her. The place she was in was no longer her room, but a larger room. The room was simply decorated. There was no bed, only a mattress like a tatami. At this moment, someone was lying on the mattress. That person was none other than Dong herself. Dong sat in the corner, watching herself lazily stretched out on the bed, then looked up at Tuda, who was walking in. Yeah, I'm hungry. Yeah, she called Tuda, yeah. Had they known each other before? Dong watched Tuda walk towards her other self, then watched herself lazily sit up, momentarily unsure how to react. She wanted to reach out and pull Tuda back, but her outstretched arm passed right through Tuda's body. They didn't see her at all because to her, they were just an image the phoenix wanted her to see. What do you want to eat? Tuda sat beside Dong, Bante Nhe and Hangvuat Vilung Koi, his hand gently stroking her back, his eyes filled with a doting smile. Dong closed her eyes, burrowing into Tuda's arms, sniffing happily. Yeah, you smell so good. There's a fragrant lotus scent. There's a fragrant lotus scent. Dong heard her own voice echoing in her ears, and suddenly remembered that when she came to Wei Village, she also smelled a lotus scent on Mr. Tuda. At that time, she felt that Mr. Tude was not only handsome but also very clean. Later, when he smiled at her, she also had a feeling of having met him before. If she really knew Mr. Tude, would she have such a close relationship with him as what she saw now? Was this a hallucination the phoenix gave her, or were her memories taken away? No one gave her an answer. Odong had never felt so helpless. She curled up in the corner and closed her eyes, no longer looking or listening. She didn't know how much time had passed, but Odong vaguely felt a gust of wind blow past. She looked up and around. The scenery had changed again. This time, it wasn't her home, nor the large, simply decorated room, but a place where cherry blossoms drifted. The wind carried the cherry blossom petals towards her, falling onto her head and clothes, covering the ground. Odong reached out her hand, and a petal, as if sentient, spun down and landed in her palm. Odong smiled. She had always had one wish: to admire cherry blossoms with her loved ones. Now, she was about to leave this world. Perhaps the Phoenix Lord knew her wish and had created a cherry blossom shower just for her. Thank you. She clutched the cherry blossom petal in her palm, wanting it to accompany her on the road to the underworld. Odong, a gentle voice called her. Odong turned around and saw Tude standing beneath a cherry blossom tree. He wore purple robes, matching his long purple hair, fluttering dramatically beneath the cherry blossoms like a dream, like an illusion. Mr. Tude. Odong stood up, lowering her hands, looking at him. It's time. We should set off. Odong nodded. She looked at the surrounding cherry blossoms again, smiling, and walked towards Tude. As she approached Tude, she saw a tear fall from Mr. Tude's eye. Why is Mr. Tude crying? It's nothing. Tude wiped the tear from the corner of his eye, then reached out and pulled Odong into his embrace. It's nothing, he continued, but his voice was choked with emotion. Odong thought Mr. Tude must be sad for her. He was truly a good person. Mr. Tude, Odong also reached out and hugged him. You don't need to be sad for me. Giving my life for my brother is a very happy thing for me, because I love him. Tude said nothing, holding her even tighter. I think, Odong sniffled, if my brother knew my choice, perhaps he would forgive me, because living is sometimes more uncomfortable than dying. Hearing her say that, Tude asked, so he should live well, right? Odong nodded. That's right, because he lives not only for himself but also for me. Mr. Tude, when you go back, you must tell my brother not to play games anymore, to study hard and become a useful person in the future. I'm sorry. Tude loosened his embrace, looked seriously at Odong's face, and apologized again. I'm afraid I can't deliver this message to Ning for you. After leading you to Wei Village, I must return to the divine realm. Where is the divine realm? It's everywhere, but it's not in the same space as the world you live in. A parallel world? Yes. Tude lowered his gaze, tears welling up on his long eyelashes again. So you won't come back again. Odong thought for a moment, then asked, aren't you a cultivator? Cultivating in the human world is your duty. Why do you want to return? Because I love you. Odong was stunned. She reached out and pinched her cheek, then looked at the cherry blossoms flying across the sky, and suddenly smiled. Mr. Tude, I know you have magic and can read my thoughts, but you don't need to do these things for me. On the way to the underworld, having cherry blossoms with me is enough. You don't need to pretend to be my lover. Tude was silent. He looked at her, his eyes moist. Odong didn't want to linger any longer. If she had chosen to leave the hope of continued life for her brother, then she should be happy and complete this task as soon as possible. As for the confusing images that affected her judgment just now, she hoped they would never appear again. Because with her own ability, she simply couldn't distinguish between what was real and what was illusion. But one thing she could be sure of, Mr. Tude could be trusted, so she urged Tude. Mr. Tude, let's go. Wait a moment, Tude pulled her back. Prolonging life is going against the will of heaven. Only when Nanshan opens can life be exchanged for life. Therefore, both the one who prolongs life and the one whose life is prolonged must be willing. So Tude looked deep into Odong's eyes, then reached out and covered her forehead. So I must return the memories I took from you. After he finished speaking, a faint blue light slowly flickered between his fingers. In Odong's mind, the memories he had taken and the memories he had imposed began to be replaced. Odong felt as if her entire head was being drilled. Whirring sounds and fragmented memories flooded her mind like a movie. Finally, she couldn't bear it anymore. Her eyes darkened, and she fell to the ground. She seemed to sink into a hazy dream. She saw an 18-year-old girl entering an office with a small backpack on her back. Are you hiring an assistant here? She stood at the door, smiling sweetly at a young man in the office. The man put down the documents in his hand and looked at her. In the reflected light, she couldn't clearly see the man's face, only smelled the fragrant lotus scent in the room where the man was. "Did you come here to apply?" the man asked, then stood up from his seat and approached her. Finally, she clearly saw his face. It was Mr. Tuda. The image changed. Odong saw herself sitting in that earlier room. A phone was on the table. She pretended to be working but secretly picked up her phone to take a picture of her boss who was looking at documents opposite her. "Tuda." Tuda looked up at her. She quickly continued to pretend to work as if nothing had happened. "Odong, what are you doing?" "Nothing. Didn't you ask me what to name the office?" "I'm looking for some information online," Odong replied, her clear, resonant voice revealing a hint of cunning. Tuda put down the documents in his hand, listening attentively. "Then tell me what information you're looking for." Odong began to scratch her head. She hadn't been online searching for materials. All morning, she had been discussing her boss's worldly beauty with her best friend, Lin Xiaorong. However, she was very clever and immediately started rambling. "There's no useful information online. Besides, our office specializes in helping people solve difficult problems, unlike other consulting offices. I think." Her large, clear black and white eyes darted around, and she immediately came up with a name. "I think our office should have a divine name. Strange Case Investigation Agency. How does the boss feel about that?" Strange Case Investigation Agency. Tuda thought for a moment, then smiled at Odong. "That sounds great." "That's right." Odong was a little smug. "Then I'll have someone print some advertisements, and then find some people to hand them out on the street." "Okay." Hearing him say that, Odong quickly extended her hand for money. Tuda looked at her with a helpless smile and took out his wallet. "You really are a money lover. You only start working when you need money. Of course, you have to collect the money first." Odong received the money from Tuda and said seriously, "Boss, from now on, you also need to collect a deposit before accepting a job. After completing a task, you must demand the remaining payment immediately. If they don't pay, we don't work. Also, we need to compile our fees and establish a standard price list. Anyone who comes to us must be asked to see the standard price list first before discussing anything." The image changed again. Odong saw herself dressed in black, carrying a sleeping bag, secretly following a man through an alley. The man suddenly stopped, then turned around and made a SHHH gesture to Odong. Moonlight illuminated the man's face. It was Tuda. He stepped back 2 paces, walked in front of Odong, and said softly, "I'll go check it out. You stay here and keep watch. Don't come out if anything happens." Odong patted the night vision camera in her hand and gave Tuda an okay gesture. Tuda turned to leave. Odong grabbed his strap, whispering, "Be careful." Tuda turned around, ruffled her hair, then vanished into the darkness. In the next image, Odong saw Tuda carrying her home under a street lamp. The autumn wind tousled Tuda's hair. He looked slightly up at the road ahead. Odong, on his back, vaguely opened her drunken eyes and called out, "Mr. Tuda, thank you for carrying me home." "No need to thank me, but next time don't drink so much." "But I intentionally drank that much." Odong buried her head in his shoulder, a little embarrassed. Tuda stopped, turning his head to look at her. "Why did you intentionally drink? Is something bothering you?" he asked her. Odong shook her head on his back. "Missing my parents." Odong continued to shake her head. "What is it?" Odong's face flushed for no clear reason. She stammered, I want to confess my feelings to Mr. Tuda." Tuda's dark, night-like eyes flickered slightly. He looked towards Odong's head, full of hope. Odong couldn't answer. She could only shake her head frantically. "Nan Shan is opened," Granny Long said. As soon as she finished speaking, the surroundings suddenly darkened, then a beam of light shot down from above, striking Odong and Tuda. Odong didn't know what to do. She collapsed into his arms, clutching him tightly, shaking her head and crying. Tuda smiled. "Silly girl, why are you crying? Didn't you say you wouldn't cry after I left in 30 years? You really like to lie too." Odong cried even harder. Tuda lifted her face, bent down, and smiled as he kissed her lips, then whispered in her ear, "Odong, remember to open the 3rd drawer." "Huh." I left the map of the Divine Realms seal inside. He looked at the light above his head and spoke faster. "Odong, I'll wait for you in the 9th heaven. You must come find me." Before he could finish, his voice seemed to be suddenly restrained by something. Odong could only gape, unable to hear anything. "What?" she cried so hard it made him tremble. Tuda also realized Odong couldn't hear his voice. He stopped speaking, just held her tightly. He knew that the high heaven wouldn't allow him to reveal these secrets, so he could only wait until Nan Shan opened to tell her. But it seemed the phoenix still sensed it. Forget it, these things no longer matter. As long as Odong can survive, he's satisfied. "Oh Dong, I agree to give you my life, so you must live well." Tu-da reluctantly released her, his eyes filled with tears. No, Oh Dong wanted to hug him, she even wanted to kiss him. But as soon as she finished speaking, the light above her rushed towards her like a sharp knife, and her entire body felt as if it were being torn apart. Tu-da held her face, pleading bitterly. "Quickly say, yes, my love, quickly, or both you and I will disappear." Oh Dong still shook her head. "Quickly say, yes, we're running out of time." I agree." With Oh Dong's "I agree," Tu-da's body slowly became transparent. Oh Dong wanted to grab him, but as soon as she reached out, Tu-da transformed into a swirling wisp of smoke, flying upwards, finally disappearing into the boundless darkness with the light. Tu-da, Tu-da. Many people in S City knew of a female yin-yang master named Oh Dong. She not only knew how to read yin and yang and feng shui, but also how to catch ghosts and exorcise demons. But everyone who saw Oh Dong felt pity for her, because this beautiful young yin-yang master was crippled. Some said Oh Dong wasn't born crippled. She became crippled from a broken leg in an accident. Others said Oh Dong was crippled because she used one leg to exchange her life with the heavens. Surely no one in this world could miraculously come back to life after being dead for a day. Therefore, the mystical aura surrounding Oh Dong grew stronger and stronger. Oh Dong herself didn't care about these rumors. She went out when there was work, and when there wasn't, she would stay alone in the strange case investigation agency. She opened, researching one thing. What is the third drawer? Why did someone always ask her to open the third drawer? At first, when that voice told her to open the third drawer, she didn't pay much attention. After the accident, she had forgotten many things, including her age, whether she had a job, if she had a boyfriend, and so on. But she also remembered many things, such as the death of her parents, where her best friend Lin Xiaorong lived, the various yin-yang arts she knew, and so on. She thought that the voice asking her to open the third drawer might be a forgotten memory, so she didn't care. But later, that voice appeared more and more often, sometimes while eating, sometimes while bathing. This strange voice would suddenly blurt out, "Open the third drawer." But the voice didn't come out naturally, it came from Oh Dong's mind. So Oh Dong couldn't tell if the voice was from her own consciousness or someone else's. After wrestling with this voice for a year, Oh Dong finally confronted the problem, and she began to research what the third drawer was. The office of the Strange Case Investigation Agency was very simple. There were 2 drawers on the left and right sides of the desk, and only one drawer on the reception coffee table. The tea cabinet next to it was just a cabinet with no drawers, so there was no third drawer in her workplace. She had even turned the entire room upside down but found nothing useful, so she gave up. That night, while she was bathing, that strange voice came out again. "Open the third drawer." Oh my God, where is the third drawer? At this moment, Oh Dong was truly angry. She didn't want to bathe anymore, so she quickly dried herself and called a locksmith company. "Hello, you guys often pick locks for people. Do you know what kind of furniture has a third drawer?" "A makeup box." Oh Dong shivered when she heard that. Indeed, she had a makeup box. But after the accident, she never opened it again. She also didn't know who gave it to her. "Thank you, young man from the locksmith company." She ran back to her room and took the makeup box from the cabinet. The makeup box was exquisitely designed. The dark purple wooden box was beautifully inlaid with silver trim. Oh Dong examined it and found that her makeup box indeed had 3 drawers. She thought for a moment and then tried to pull out the third drawer. But the third drawer wouldn't open. She tried opening the first drawer. It was very easy. The second drawer too. Only the third drawer couldn't be opened. Oh Dong rolled her eyes heavenward. She decided to ask that young locksmith to help. 10 minutes later, the locksmith arrived on a motorcycle. He went upstairs, handed Oh Dong a business card, then took off his helmet. Only then did Oh Dong realize that this locksmith had purple hair. Oh Dong looked at the business card, then at the locksmith. "Are you Mr. Tu-da?"